At 3:17 a.m., the bass slammed into my walls like a physical force, not a metaphor, not exaggeration. The picture frame above my dresser rattled so hard I thought it might fall. The glass in the window vibrated. My chest tightened as my body jolted awake before my mind caught up, that sharp, panicked surge you get when something is deeply wrong. For half a second, I lay there hoping, stupidly, that it would stop, that this was accidental, a brief mistake, a car passing outside. It didn't. The music swelled, thick and relentless. Heavy EDM bass, the kind that crawls into your bones and refuses to leave. My phone glowed on the nightstand. 3:17 a.m. I had work in less than 4 hours. I pushed myself out of bed, feet cold against the floor, pulse already racing, and stepped into the hallway. My roommate was sprawled across the couch like it was the middle of the afternoon, legs tucked under her, phone in hand, scrolling lazily. The speakers beside her were blasting at full volume, unapologetic, aggressive. "What are you doing?" I shouted, my voice barely cutting through the noise. She looked up, irritated, not guilty, annoyed that I'd interrupted her. She didn't touch the volume. "I'm listening to music." "It's 3 in the morning," I said, my throat tight. "I have work." With a sigh, she leaned forward and turned the music down just enough to talk. Not off. Never off. "I can't sleep," she said slowly, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "My sleep schedule's messed up. If I'm awake, you're awake." I stared at her, my brain stalling as it tried to process the entitlement in that sentence. "That's not how sharing a place works," I said. "I pay rent here too." She shrugged. "So do I. If you don't like it, move out." Then she turned the music back up. Something in me went completely still. I stood there for a full minute, hands clenched, listening to the bass thud through the apartment, through my ribs, through every exhausted nerve in my body. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I turned around, walked back into my room, grabbed my laptop bag and work things, and left. At 4 o'clock a.m., I checked into a hotel. Nothing fancy, just clean and quiet, and slept better than I had in weeks. But before I closed the apartment door behind me that night, I did something else. Something small. Something quiet. Something she wouldn't hear coming. 8 months earlier, this apartment had felt like a clean slate. I'd just turned 26 and needed a roommate fast. Rent in the city was brutal, and living alone wasn't realistic unless I wanted to spend every paycheck just to sleep behind a locked door. I downloaded one of those roommate matching apps, filled out the profile, listed my schedule, my job, my boundaries. Quiet nights. Regular hours. No drama. That's where I found my roommate. Her profile looked normal. Too normal, even. Stable job. Clean habits. Quiet, she'd written. Works nights at a casino, but said she was respectful about shared spaces. We messaged back and forth for a few days, then met in person. She showed up on time, smiled easily, answered questions without defensiveness, said all the right things. "I mostly keep to myself," she'd said, sipping her coffee. "When I get home late, I'm usually exhausted. I just shower and crash." That sounded perfect. We split the rent evenly, signed the lease, moved in. For the first few months, it actually worked. We had opposite schedules, sure, but they didn't clash. I worked a standard 9 to 5 in IT support. Nothing glamorous, but steady. I needed sleep to function. She worked nights at the casino and usually got home around 2 in the morning. I'd hear the door open sometimes, soft footsteps, the bathroom light flicking on and off. That was it. No noise, no drama. We weren't friends exactly, but we were civil. Polite. The kind of roommates who nod in the kitchen, exchange the occasional long day, and then retreat to our own lives. I liked it that way. Then she got fired. She didn't tell me right away. I noticed it indirectly. Little things at first. She stopped rushing out in the evenings. Her uniform stopped appearing in the laundry. She started lingering in the apartment more, pacing, scrolling on her phone for hours. A week later, she mentioned it casually. "Yeah, the casino let me go," she said one afternoon, leaning against the counter. Whatever. I hated that place anyway. I asked what happened. She waved it off. Not important. Later, I found out through a mutual acquaintance that she'd been giving free drinks to her boyfriend and his friends. The casino didn't appreciate that. She'd been unemployed for 3 weeks when the real shift happened. Her sleep schedule stayed locked in night mode, but without the structure of work, it unraveled. She stayed up all night, slept through the afternoons. The apartment slowly stopped feeling shared and started feeling occupied. At first, it was minor. The TV a little louder than usual at midnight, video calls with friends at 1 in the morning. Cabinet doors slammed at 3 while she made snacks. I tried to be reasonable. Hey, I said one night, standing in the hallway, rubbing sleep from my eyes. I've got work in the morning. Could you keep it down after midnight? She rolled her eyes. It's my apartment, too. I know, I said. I'm not saying you can't exist, just quieter at night. Get earplugs. So I did. They helped, a little. But something had shifted in her tone. Less cooperative, more territorial. Like the apartment was hers now because she was always there, and I was just a guest passing through. Each night, the noise crept later, louder, more deliberate. By the time that Tuesday night rolled around, the night she blasted EDM at 3:17 a.m., this wasn't an accident anymore. It was a power move. And when she looked me dead in the eye and said, "If I'm awake, you're awake," I finally understood what I was dealing with. This wasn't about music. It was about control. Once I heard it for what it was, I couldn't unhear it. That sentence, "If I'm awake, you're awake," started echoing through everything she did afterward, like a quiet threat disguised as inconvenience. The noise didn't stop after that night. It changed shape. Some nights it was the TV, volume creeping higher long after midnight. Other nights it was her voice, laughing too loudly on video calls, pacing the living room like the floor belonged to her alone. Cabinet doors slammed with unnecessary force. Drawers yanked open and shut. The microwave beeping at 2:30 in the morning, over and over, because she'd let it finish instead of stopping it early. None of it was technically outrageous on its own. That was the problem. It was just enough to keep me from fully sleeping, just enough to wear me down. I started waking up exhausted, head pounding, eyes burning as I stared at my screen at work. I'd catch myself rereading the same email 3 times, forgetting simple things, snapping at coworkers over nothing. Sleep deprivation does that. It doesn't hit you all at once. It erodes you quietly. I tried talking to her again, not accusing, not angry. "Hey," I said one evening, keeping my voice calm. "Can we agree on quiet hours, just after midnight on weekdays?" She didn't even look at me. "I told you I can't sleep." "I know," I said, "but I still have to function." She scoffed. "That's not my problem." That was the moment something shifted inside me. Not anger yet, something colder, a realization. She wasn't unaware. She wasn't inconsiderate. She was choosing this. From then on, every request I made was met with the same dismissive tone. Eye rolls, shrugs, that lazy confidence of someone who knew exactly how far she could push without crossing a clear line. If I mentioned work, she reminded me she was unemployed and stressed. If I asked her to lower the volume, she reminded me she paid rent. If I said I was exhausted, she reminded me I could leave. "You're not trapped here," she'd say. "You can always move." But we had a lease. She knew that. That's when the passive aggression started. I'd come home to find the thermostat cranked up, even though she knew I ran hot at night. The shared spaces stopped feeling neutral. My things nudged aside, her stuff spreading out. Dishes left piled in the sink for days, like a silent dare. I started sleeping lighter. Every sound jolted me awake. Every creak of the floor made my chest tighten. One night, as I lay staring at the ceiling, listening to her laugh on the phone at 1:45 a.m., I realized something unsettling. She wasn't just awake, she was watching how I reacted, testing how much disruption it took to get a response, how much she could take before I snapped or left. And when I finally confronted her again, really confronted her, she didn't deny it. She smiled. Not a big smile, just a small knowing one. "If you can't handle it," she said, "that's on you." That's when I understood this wasn't going to resolve itself. There was no compromise coming, no sudden return to normal. This was a slow burn conflict, and it was heading somewhere ugly. I just didn't know yet how far she was willing to take it, or how far I was. The night it finally broke wasn't dramatic at first. There was no argument building all day, no warning sign flashing red. I went to bed like I always did, earplugs in, lights off, telling myself that if I could just get a few solid hours, I'd be okay. I was dead asleep when it happened. The bass hit so hard it felt like someone had shoved the wall. Not music you hear, music you feel. The kind that rattles picture frames and makes your chest vibrate in time with it. My eyes flew open. My heart slammed against my ribs as if it was trying to escape. I reached for my phone. 3:17 a.m. For a second, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, stunned, disoriented. Then the second beat dropped, heavier than the first, and my room physically shook. That was it. I ripped the earplugs out and stumbled into the hallway, every step fueled by adrenaline and exhaustion. The apartment was flooded with sound. Thick, relentless EDM bass pouring from the living room speakers like a declaration. My roommate was exactly where I'd left her the last time this happened, on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling. Calm, comfortable, untouched by the chaos she was creating. "What are you doing?" I shouted, my voice raw. She looked up, annoyed, not surprised, not apologetic. "I'm listening to music." "It's 3 in the morning," I said. "I have work in 4 hours." She leaned forward and turned the volume down just enough to speak. The bass still thumped, still invasive. "I can't sleep," she said, slow and deliberate. "My schedule's messed up." "That doesn't give you the right—" "If I'm awake," she cut in, eyes locking onto mine, "you're awake." The words landed like a slap. "That's insane," I said. "We share this place. I pay rent." "So do I." She shrugged. "If you don't like it, move out." Then she turned the music back up. I stood there frozen, listening to the sound crash back into the walls. Something inside me detached. Not anger, not fear. Clarity. I wasn't going to win this conversation. And I wasn't going to sleep here tonight. I went back into my room, packed my laptop and work bag, and walked out without another word. At 4 a.m., I checked into a hotel. Nothing fancy. Clean, quiet. $89 for a bed and silence. I saved the receipt. And then, before exhaustion pulled me under, I remembered the 3 alarm clocks sitting in my drawer. I'd bought them years ago in college. Cheap, battery-powered, loud as hell. The kind that didn't ease you awake. They attacked you. An idea formed slowly, calmly. I set each alarm to go off at different times. Random times. 6:47 a.m., 11:23 a.m., 2:15 p.m. I switched them to repeat. Then I went back to the apartment. Our building had old metal vent covers, the kind you could unscrew easily. I removed one in the living room, slid an alarm deep inside, and screwed it back on. Another went into the vent in her bedroom. The third into the hallway. 15 minutes. That's all it took. Then I returned to the hotel and slept better than I had in weeks. 3 days passed. I didn't go back. I booked the hotel again. Worked my normal hours. Lived like a functional human being. Then my phone buzzed. Her. "WTF is that beeping noise?" I stared at the message. "What beeping noise?" I replied. Her. "There's an alarm going off somewhere. It's driving me insane." "Weird," I typed. "Maybe check the smoke detectors." Hours later. Her. "Found it. In the living room vent. Did you put this here?" "Put what? Where?" Her. "An alarm clock. Why would there be an alarm clock in a vent?" "No idea," I said. "I'm at work." She didn't respond. Until Thursday morning. 6:47 a.m. My phone lit up like a warning flare. Her. "Another one. There's another alarm. Where are they? Did you do this?" I waited until lunch. "Do what?" "I've been staying at a hotel since Tuesday, remember?" Her. "Why?" "Because someone blasted music at 3 a.m. and told me if I'm awake, you're awake," I wrote. So I left. Her. "So you did put the alarms there?" "I didn't say that," I replied. "I said I'm sleeping somewhere quiet." Then I blocked her number. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. That was just the moment everything officially went from roommate conflict to open war. Blocking her number didn't bring relief the way I thought it would. I slept. Real sleep. Deep and uninterrupted. But when I woke up, there was a tight knot sitting just under my ribs. Not guilt, not fear. Awareness. The kind that tells you something has crossed a line and there's no going back to how things were before. I kept staying at the hotel. Tuesday night turned into Wednesday. Wednesday into Thursday. Each morning I woke up rested, clear-headed, functional again. Each morning I reminded myself why I wasn't going back. Work felt easier almost immediately. I could think again. I wasn't rereading the same ticket 5 times or snapping at people who didn't deserve it. That alone told me everything I needed to know about how bad things had gotten in that apartment. Still, my phone kept buzzing from unknown numbers. I ignored the first one. Then another. And another. Curiosity got the better of me. During a break, I checked the messages. There's another alarm. I can hear it, but I can't find it. I'm tearing this place apart. Maintenance came. They can't find it either. I stared at the screen, imagining the apartment. Vent covers ripped off. Furniture shifted. That constant, sharp beeping, puncturing every moment of her day. "Sounds exhausting," I typed back once. "Maybe try getting some sleep." She didn't reply. On Friday, I decided to stop by the apartment during my lunch break. I needed clothes, and I wanted to see what condition the place was in. I still had a key. I was still on the lease. When I opened the door, I froze. Every vent cover was off. leaning against walls like discarded armor. Couch cushions were piled on the floor. Kitchen drawers hung open. The refrigerator had been pulled away from the wall, cords exposed, like she'd expected the sound to crawl out from behind it. The apartment looked like it had been searched by someone desperate. She stood in the hallway, eyes sunken, hair pulled into a messy knot, wearing clothes that looked slept in. Or maybe not slept in at all. "You," she said when she saw me. Her voice cracked, not from emotion, but from lack of rest. "You did this." "Did what?" I asked calmly. "The alarms. I found 2. There's another one. I can hear it, but I can't find it." "Have you tried calling maintenance?" I asked. "They already came, twice. They couldn't find it either." I shrugged. "That sucks." Her hands balled into fists. "This is harassment." "Is it?" I said. "Because I'm not the one who blasted music at 3 a.m. and told you I didn't get to sleep if you didn't." "That's different." "How?" "I live here." "So do I said. "Or I did, before you made it unlivable." She followed me as I grabbed clothes from my room, ranting nonstop about how I was ruining her life, about how she'd call the landlord, about how this was illegal. "You should," I said, slinging the bag over my shoulder. "I've got receipts for 3 nights at a hotel because the apartment was uninhabitable due to excessive noise." Her mouth snapped shut. "I think the landlord will be very interested in that." I walked out and closed the door behind me. It felt good. Not victorious, just grounded. Like I'd finally stopped absorbing the chaos and started drawing a line. The next morning, my phone rang. It was the landlord. The landlord's name lit up my phone early Saturday morning. He was a decent guy, owned a few properties in the area, practical, calm. We'd never had issues before. Rent was always on time, no complaints, no drama. "Hey," he said, sounding mildly uncomfortable. "Got a call from your roommate. Says you've been harassing her." I leaned back against the hotel headboard, already awake, already steady. "Harassing how?" "She claims you hid alarm clocks in the apartment. Says they're going off at random times and she hasn't slept in days. She wants you evicted." I paused. Let the silence do some work. "Did she mention why I've been staying at a hotel for the past week?" Another pause. Longer this time. "You've been staying at a hotel?" "Since Tuesday," I said. "I've got receipts. She was blasting music at 3 a.m. and told me, quote, 'If I'm awake, you're awake.' When I asked her to turn it down, she made the apartment unlivable." He exhaled slowly. "She didn't mention that." "I figured," I said. "I also have the text messages, including her admitting to the music." "Send them to me." I did immediately. Screenshots, timestamps, everything. An hour later, he called back. "Okay," he said. "This is a mess. Technically, she violated the lease first. Quiet hours are clearly listed, 10 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock a.m. on weekdays." "She broke that." "Yes," he said. "That said, if you did hide alarms in the vents, that's creative, but probably not legal either." "I didn't say I did that," I replied evenly. "I said I've been staying at a hotel because she made the apartment uninhabitable." He laughed, actually laughed. "Right," he said. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm putting her on notice for the noise violation. If there are any more complaints, she's out. As for you, you're paid through the end of the lease. You're good." "What about the hotel costs?" I asked. "That's between you two," he said. "You might want to consider small claims court if she won't reimburse you." I thanked him and hung up. Sunday, I went back to the apartment to grab more things. She wasn't there. The place was still torn apart. Vent covers off, furniture shifted, but the energy was different, empty, like she was hiding somewhere else, probably her boyfriend's place, trying to escape a sound she couldn't control. I left the third alarm exactly where it was. Monday morning, my phone rang again. "Building maintenance." The supervisor sounded tired. "Hey," he said. "Your roommate has been calling us nonstop about a beeping noise. We've been out there 4 times. Can't find anything." "I'm not surprised," I said. "There's something else," he added. "She's called us 11 times total in the past week. That's excessive. After the first 3 visits, we charge a call-out fee. $75 per visit." I did the math in my head. She'd already racked up $825. "You should probably tell her," I said. "We did," he replied. "She screamed at my guy, said we were incompetent, said she'd report us." "Report you for what?" "No idea," he said, "but we're documenting everything." That afternoon, she texted me from a new number. "I know you did this." "Did what?" I replied. "The alarms. I know it was you." "You can't prove it," I said. "Karma will get you." "Karma," I replied, "like blasting music at 3 a.m. and then dealing with the consequences?" I blocked that number too. By Wednesday, the landlord emailed both of us. Mandatory mediation, tenant dispute resolution, scheduled for the following week. Fine. Then, Thursday afternoon, while I was at work, my phone rang again. Unknown number. This is building management, the woman said. Your roommate is requesting a full HVAC inspection. She believes something is in the vents causing noise. The inspection costs $500, and we need authorization from both tenants to proceed. I smiled. No, I said, I don't authorize a $500 inspection for phantom noises. She says she can't afford it. That sounds like her problem, I replied. She's welcome to pay for it herself. 20 minutes later, another text from yet another new number. You piece of garbage. Who is this? You know who it is. New phone. I don't, I said, but I'm guessing you still can't sleep. No response. The mediation session was the next day, and that's when everything finally came apart. By the morning of the mediation, I was calm in a way that scared me. Not numb, not detached, just settled. Like every emotional argument had already finished playing out in my head, and what was left was facts, documentation, consequences. The conference room at the property management office was small and aggressively neutral. Beige walls, fluorescent lights, a long table with 3 chairs on one side, 2 on the other. I arrived early. The landlord was already there, flipping through a folder. A mediator sat beside him. A professional-looking woman with a practiced, unreadable expression and a stack of papers in front of her. My roommate showed up 15 minutes late. She looked wrecked. Dark circles carved deep under her eyes, hair pulled back carelessly, sweatpants, stained hoodie. Her movements were jittery, sharp, like she was vibrating with tension. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked desperate. The mediator cleared her throat. We're here to resolve an ongoing dispute between roommates regarding noise complaints and alleged harassment. Let's begin with you, she said, nodding toward my roommate. What's your primary concern? My roommate didn't hesitate. He put alarms in the apartment, she said, voice cracking. In the vents. They go off at random times. I can't find them. I haven't slept in 2 weeks. She looked at me like I'd personally ruined her life. The mediator turned to me. Is this true? I don't live in the apartment anymore, I said evenly. I've been staying at a hotel for 2 weeks because she was blasting music at 3 a.m. and told me, quote, if I'm awake, you're awake. That's taken out of context, my roommate snapped. Is it? I asked calmly, pulling out my phone, because here are the texts. I slid the screenshots across the table. Timestamps. Her words, 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday night. The mediator read them carefully. Her expression didn't change, but her eyebrows lifted slightly. These messages show you admitted to playing loud music at 3 in the morning, she said, turning to my roommate. He was being dramatic, my roommate muttered. It wasn't that loud. Loud enough that she left and has been paying for a hotel for 2 weeks, the mediator replied. She turned to the landlord. What does the lease say about noise? Quiet hours are 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. on weekdays, he said. She violated that. My roommate's face flushed red. What about what she did? She snapped, pointing at me. The alarms. Can you prove she put alarms in the vents? The mediator asked. She admitted it. I didn't, I said quietly. I said I was staying at a hotel. That's not an admission. The mediator looked at me directly. Did you put alarms in the vents? I've been at a hotel for 2 weeks, I said. Whatever's happening in that apartment has nothing to do with me anymore. That's not really an answer, she said. It's the only one I'm giving. The landlord leaned forward. Here's the reality. She violated the lease. That's documented. Whether or not there was retaliation, we can't prove it. That's not fair, my roommate said, voice rising. Life isn't fair, I said, my tone flat. You told me I didn't get to sleep if you didn't. You're dealing with the consequences. That's when she broke. Not quiet tears, not to sniffle. A full collapse. I just want to sleep, she sobbed, hands shaking. Every time I start to drift off, there's a beeping. I've torn apart every room. Maintenance can't find it. I'm going insane. The mediator slid a box of tissues toward her. Have you considered moving out? She asked gently. I can't afford to break the lease. She turned to me. Would you be willing to move out? No, I said without hesitation. I'm paid through the end of the lease. If anyone's leaving, it's her. I can't afford that either, my roommate whispered. The landlord cleared his throat. Here's what I can offer, he said. She's already in violation. I'll let her out of the lease without penalty if she's gone by the end of the month. She stared at him. Are you serious? Completely. What about the deposit? You'll get your half back minus unpaid fees and damages. He flipped a page. Maintenance has been out 14 times in 2 weeks. After the first 3, it's $75 per visit. That's $825. Her face went white. The deposit was $600, she whispered. Yes, he said. You're already $225 short. She pointed at me, shaking. This is all her fault. For what? I asked. Hotel costs? Yes! You're right, I said calmly. You owe me $1,046 for 2 weeks of hotel stays. I'm not paying that. I handed copies of the receipts to the mediator. These are legitimate expenses caused by uninhabitable living conditions, the mediator said after reviewing them. You'd have a strong case in small claims court. My roommate stood up abruptly, pacing. This is ridiculous, she snapped. This is all because you're a whiny baby who can't handle a little music. At 3 a.m, I said, after you literally said, if I'm awake, you're awake. I was joking. Weird joke, I said. The mediator raised a hand. Here's my recommendation. You move out by the end of the month. You pay the maintenance fees and the hotel costs. In exchange, she agrees not to pursue further action. I don't have that kind of money. Then set up a payment plan, the mediator said. Otherwise, this goes to court. You will likely lose. My roommate stared at me with pure hatred. Fine, she spat. I'll move out, but I'm not paying you a dime. Cool, I said. See you in court. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the mediator jumped. The room went silent. The landlord sighed. Well, that went about as expected. And just like that, the breaking point passed. What came next wasn't emotional. It was inevitable. The moment she walked out of that room, something shifted. Not relief, not victory. Control. For weeks, the situation had felt reactive. Noise, retaliation, escalation. Now it finally snapped into focus. This wasn't chaos anymore. It was a process, a paper trail, a series of consequences that no amount of rage or denial could undo. The landlord gathered his papers slowly. She has until the end of the month, he said. If she doesn't leave voluntarily, I'll start eviction proceedings. The noise violations are more than enough. And the hotel costs? I asked. Small claims court, he said. You've got everything documented. I nodded. I filed the paperwork that afternoon. Every receipt, every screenshot, every timestamp, 2 weeks of hotel stays, filing fees, total amount, $1,446, plus costs. Court date set for the following month. Once it was filed, the situation stopped being personal. It became official. She moved out the next weekend. No warning, no goodbye. She waited until I was at work and emptied her room in a rush. When I came back later to check the apartment, the door to her room stood open like a wound. Holes punched in the drywall, stains on the carpet, trash left behind. The kind of damage that comes from someone angry enough to want to leave a mark. The landlord walked through the unit 2 days later. She's not getting her deposit back, he said flatly. Not even close. We're billing her for the rest. That night, I slept in my own bed again. The apartment was quiet. Not tense quiet, real quiet. The kind that lets your shoulders drop without you noticing. The next morning, before work, I grabbed a screwdriver and went to the hallway vent. The third alarm was still there, still ticking, still set to repeat. I took it out carefully and placed it on my desk like a strange little trophy. Proof, not of revenge, but of boundaries finally enforced. A week later, an email came in from the court. She hadn't responded yet. My lawyer friend skimmed the documents over coffee and smiled. It's a slam dunk, she said. Lease violation, written admission, receipts. You'll get a judgment. Will she pay? I asked. Eventually, she shrugged. Wage garnishment if she ever works again. For the first time since this started, I laughed. Not because she was losing, but because I wasn't losing anymore. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't matched her chaos. I'd documented, stepped back, and let the system do what it was designed to do. That was the real turning point. Not the alarms, not the mediation, not even the court filing. It was the moment I stopped letting someone else's dysfunction dictate my life and took my power back quietly, legally, and completely. The fallout came quietly. No more messages from unknown numbers, no more late-night rants, no more frantic calls to maintenance. The chaos didn't explode, it evaporated. 3 days after she moved out, the landlord forwarded me the final itemized statement. Maintenance call-out fees, drywall repairs, carpet stains, damage she hadn't bothered to hide. Her security deposit was gone, every dollar of it, and it still didn't cover everything. The balance rolled over into a bill with her name on it. She didn't respond. The apartment felt different immediately, not just quieter, lighter. I spent the weekend putting things back where they belonged, reattaching vent covers, cleaning surfaces that had been left grimy with frustration. It felt like reclaiming territory that had been under siege. At night I slept. Not half sleep, Not shallow, anxious rest. Real sleep. The kind where your body lets go because it finally trusts the silence. At work, the difference was obvious. I stopped dragging, stopped rereading emails, stopped making small mistakes that came from exhaustion, not incompetence. Coworkers commented on it. "You look better," one of them said casually. I was. A week later, the landlord emailed again. She hadn't contested the charges, hadn't disputed the damages, hadn't tried to negotiate. She'd disappeared. That absence was the fallout. Because avoidance doesn't erase consequences, it just lets them stack up quietly in the background. Fees, records, documentation. Things that don't go away just because you stop answering your phone. I found myself noticing small things again. Making dinner without flinching at noise. Watching TV at a normal volume. Sitting in my own living room without feeling like I was bracing for impact. One evening, I picked up the alarm clock from my desk. The last one. The one she never found. It wasn't a trophy anymore. It was just an object from a chapter that had closed. I removed the batteries and set it in a drawer. Not out of guilt. Out of finality. She was gone. The apartment was peaceful. And the consequences she'd triggered were now hers alone to carry. The apartment is quiet now. Not the tense, fragile kind of quiet that feels like it could shatter at any moment, but the kind that settles into your bones and stays. The kind that lets you breathe without realizing you'd been holding it in for months. I sleep through the night again. I wake up rested. I make coffee without bracing myself for noise. I come home from work and sit on the couch without feeling like I'm trespassing in my own space. Peace, it turns out, isn't loud or dramatic. It's consistent. Looking back, the lesson wasn't about alarm clocks or petty revenge. That was just the surface. The real turning point came much earlier, when I stopped trying to reason with someone who didn't respect boundaries and started protecting myself instead. I documented instead of arguing. I removed myself instead of escalating. I let systems exist for a reason. Leases, rules, receipts, consequences. And that changed everything. People like her rely on chaos, on exhaustion, on wearing you down until you give up or give in. They expect you to react emotionally so they never have to take responsibility. The moment you stop playing that role, the power shifts. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten. I didn't need to win an argument. I just needed to stop absorbing someone else's dysfunction as my problem. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Boundaries aren't about control. They're about clarity. About deciding what you will and won't tolerate, and backing that decision with action. Sometimes the strongest response isn't confrontation. It's documentation. It's walking away. It's letting consequences do the talking. As for the alarm clocks, they're gone. The chapter is closed. The apartment is mine again. And tonight, when I turn off the lights and lie down, the only sound I hear is silence. And that feels like justice. If you've ever dealt with a nightmare roommate, someone who crossed boundaries and dared you to do something about it, you're not alone. Thank you to everyone who's shared their own stories and offered support. If this resonated with you, leave a comment. Tell me what your breaking point was. And if you want more real-life stories about boundaries, consequences, and reclaiming your peace, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's living well and sleeping through the night.